In my underrated series, this one I just love by S. Craig Zahler, the director and writer of this movie, his third feature film, Dragged Across Concrete. Here's why I like this movie a lot, why I think it's underrated, completely underrated, and how you might begin to watch and understand it at least, even if you don't still like it, coming up next. So Zahler's Dragged Across Concrete is pulling a 6.9 out of 10 on IMDb for a buddy cop movie that's dark, harrowing, Coen Brother-esque. I feel like that's quite a bit low. I think this movie is very rich and interesting. It's one of the few movies that I've watched recently, at least in recent years, that when I'm done with it, I feel like I want to go read the script and just discover more and more of its richness. Again, this movie, some critics really actually liked it, and they brought a lot out of it, but in their writings, but users on the internet, and God bless them, a lot of times they're right, but on IMDb, this movie gets hammered. It's called boring and pointless. It has no plot, and the movie is, it's the antithesis of a modern blockbuster. At the same running length, 2 hours 38 minutes, as something like Avengers would be. It is a slow burn. You are constantly observing with the cops, and it's a very atmospheric, sort of quasi-David Fincher-esque movie, but this is definitely S. Craig Zahler's own style. A quick plot overview. On the cover are these two cops. It's like a buddy cop riff on Lethal Weapon because it's got Mel Gibson in it, who had all kinds of personal scandals in his real life. Vince Vaughn as well, who's worked with Zahler in Brawl and Cell Block 99. It promises to be a buddy cop story, and it is, but it's also about this character named Slim. And Slim, who's Henry Johns, is played excellently by Tory Kittles, as a guy who just gets out of jail, and he and his family, his mother and his brother, have immediate hardships between his brother being handicapped and his mother is desperate to get money. And you see all the families in this film are desperate. They're preyed on by great predators like bank robbers. But I feel for all the characters in this movie, even while I understand they're choosing to do what's wrong very clearly. Anyway, the buddy cops, Brett and Anthony, have a stakeout, then they take down a guy. They kind of mildly torture another suspect, and then they get in trouble. They get suspended for 6 weeks. So what are they going to do? They don't have a lot of pay. They need money. So they end up doing this job, which you just watch the movie and see what happens. Of course, they accidentally run into a bank robbery by sophisticated criminals, very tough, amoral criminals who will just kill anybody for any reason. Oh, and by the way, Slim, the Henry Johns character, gets mixed up in this because he becomes a henchman, a hired hand to help these bank robbers. In the movie, we really have a trio, and there's a bank robbery in the middle to the 2/3 mark of the movie, and gold bullion is stolen. I think we're in the world of Treasure of the Sierra Madre, the great movie by John Huston, where a bunch of competing elements are trying to war and get together. It's like an old Western in the sense, who's going to get the gold in the end? Well, everybody's an anti-hero or a bad guy in this movie. It's hard to root for anybody. Now, I mentioned Fincher and the Coens. I think they're definitely here a little bit, but Zahler is like a literary naturalist. I think Breaking Bad, the TV show Fargo, Better Call Saul, these TV series are like more in the vein of what's going on in this movie, with its very slow pace, an occasional surprise, and then really a focus on ethical choices. Why do humans go wrong? What are temptations? Does it mean to do evil? Why do these characters do evil? All of this comes up in the movie. I do watch this movie in part as an exercise in literary naturalism, as I think Breaking Bad is in the vein of, where there's a sense that you're to be distant and observing these people as if they're animals or objects with forces working on them, and then they react to those forces a lot of times in negative ways, at least in this movie, but you're to judge from a distance what they're up to. I say that because this movie has been, because Zahler's other work as well, maybe some of his interview comments, considered right-wing or conservative, and maybe this movie is somewhat. There are political criticisms within the movie from these characters about the plights they're going through. For example, that men and women are basically the same as the cops sit at the breakfast table, for example. They go on and on about how a singer in the background, is he male or female? Well, they don't know, and that's the way of the world, isn't it? But those are articulated by characters. That does not mean this is either the director, the writer, or the movie's point of view. We always have to keep that in mind. Heck, maybe it's Zahler's, but I think you can watch this movie in other ways than just as some kind of right-wing screed. And frankly, I do not like the cops in this movie, although I sympathize with them and I enjoy the performances, which I think are great, by Gibson and Vaughn. I just love this pair. Yet, the cops are nasty to me in a lot of ways. I think they get what they deserve with the suspension. They also, they have a hard job, but they basically torture a woman at the beginning of this. Now, it's light torture, but I don't like to call torture light. They turn the shower on her, they put the fan on her, and then they promise her something, and they don't follow through on the promise at all. By the end of the movie, now I'm going to get into some spoilers, so be warned. The bank robbers hold a woman hostage. I think we're supposed to compare the police in the beginning, kind of torturing the suspect, who they don't know is, guilty or innocent, with the bank robbers taking a hostage. We're supposed to see them as a similar kind of criminal group, or doing ethically wrong, morally wrong things to innocent people. And so that brings me to a major idea in this movie is predation exists everywhere in all of life. What do I mean by predation? Predators preying on prey, going after prey. In this movie, lions come up all the time. One in the Safari video game that Slim and his brother play. And it happens that's the end of the movie. The last line of the movie is about predation and hunting. 2, with the lion stuff, with Brett watching a lion cub show with his daughter. And then 3, Brett looks like a lion. I mean, look at Mel Gibson's hair and his mustache. He's lion-like. And what do these predators do in the movie? They hunt, they stake out, they watch carefully, they wait a long, long time as we do as viewers, and then when it's the moment to strike, they strike. This is an unforgiving, unflinching world where everyone is preying on everybody else, potentially. And if you look at this movie very carefully, buddy cop movie with maybe some friendships, even that is sort of put to the side for the sake of lust and greed and so on. Trust is a real problem in this movie. Anybody who trusts anybody else kind of gets it. And when you have, but yet life is about giving trust to people. How else can you have groups that can do great things, or groups that can, feast on prey? You have to hunt together as a pack, as it were, which is what the bank robbers do and the cops do in this movie. Everybody's got to work together, but there's no trust. So every time a person says, I will help you out, just come out of the car, I will take care of you, then sometimes their oath is broken, particularly with the Brett character played by Mel Gibson. I think this is a fantastic performance by him, perfectly cast, partly because of his real-world, personal issues that we know are brought to bear in this role, but also just as this tough, worn-out, cynical cop who is an old lion still searching for prey. So trust, in a sense, is a fatal flaw. So where is mercy in this world? Where is justice? There seems to be none, because we're talking about a bank robbery where everybody's trying to get away with the gold for themselves. Thus, I don't watch this as black versus white, even though the ending does have aura of The Thing, or the old science fiction movie Enemy Mine, or maybe the Tarantino westerns, or Pulp Fiction, or The Hateful Eight, something like that. We have black and white, and maybe they're pitted against each other, as Slim and Brett are at the end of this movie. Will they work together or not? This is a wonderful ending, horrible, but wonderful, because Zoller knows when to reveal key plot points, key character points, and he does it with Slim at a perfect time. Why was Slim in jail? You hear it right when you should hear it, and it makes you, at least made me, rethink everything in the movie. And then I go, should I trust these cops or not? And the answer is definitely not, because Brett never keeps his word. He's willing to harm and torture as is. He's willing to do this job, not tell anybody about it. The cops can't do anything about it. And they're in a difficult situation. They see the bank robbery happen. They don't call it in. They don't go into the bank to help these people out. That's an ethical choice they make. Probably they're wrong. They claim the police won't go to the bank in time and stop the robbers in time, but, they're probably making the wrong choice over and over again. And as in the case of like a Breaking Bad, it leads to their demise. I'm left contemplating the movie. Do we live in a world of predation? And everybody's a hunter and hunted, because everybody in the movie is both a predator and prey at different points in the movie, including these uber awful bank robbers who seem to be all powerful in the beginning, just walking into convenience stores, shooting people, basically for like $5 in cash at the cash register. But they too are taken out. They too are preyed upon by the end of this movie. Unlike the Coen brothers, where you have No Country for Old Men, and it's Anton Chigurh, the psychopath killer who can go do anything he wants. He's the tough guy, lords it over everybody, amoral killer. The amoral killers are also the hunted in this movie. They also prey. So what's the best strategy in this movie? I think Slim is the example of it. Am I supposed to like him? I think he's an anti-hero, but he's smarter than everybody, as the script says, by a yardstick. So what's he do? He looks in the rearview mirror and he checks out what's behind him all the time. Unlike the cops, Unlike the bank robbers, he's looking in all directions. And that's partly what makes him smarter. There are other things too. But it turns out this main character of Henry Johns is the smartest person because he wins in the end. He's the ultimate predator or the ultimate prey who escaped, or both. And I love this movie's atmospherics. I think in the background are 70s cop movies like French Connection and The Friends of Eddie Coyle and a bunch of others. Also David Fincher, as I said, also the Coens. And you combine all that with Zoller's screenplay, which every single character speaks very differently from each other. It's not common that scripts do this, but they should. You give me 2 lines of a script and I can tell you who is talking just by those 2 lines. And so all the script quirks that are in here, from the Brett character talking about statistics or analyzing every situation via statistics, to the Anthony character's nervous chatter saying anchovies as a catchphrase. I mean, there's a bunch of things that come up in the script in particular that make it really rich and interesting. And also Zoller makes bizarre choices. And this may be what, puts off a number of viewers. He will cut away to a new character halfway through the film. He'll just introduce new characters who will last for 10 to 20 minutes and then he'll kill them off. That's very interesting. It doesn't work in a lot of cases. I think it works here. He's willing to make you wait and be patient. He's occasionally peppering scenes with excitement, but not with gratuitous violence. And then he's willing, once again, near the end of the movie, to cut to some other location and show you what some other minor character is doing in order to enhance what's going on in the main scene. And clearly directors don't do this these days. They would either develop multiple storylines and intercut them or just cut out these needless scenes. You can easily cut this movie down to an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, and it would play a lot faster. But that's not the pace of this movie because it's about, in part, hunting, in part about observing correctly, in part about the meditation on predation, evolution, evolutionary psychology, in my opinion, and what's right or wrong in this particular situation with every single character. And for all those reasons, I actually like the pace of this movie, which I think goes along with the themes and the characters and the ideas. For all those reasons, this is not only underrated to me, this is a great movie. And I'm really interested to see Zoller keep working here. I didn't quite like his other 2 movies as much. His first 2 movies, well, the one's okay, and the other one's they're super violent. But I think he's toned it down and changed some things about his style, which I really appreciate here. I hope he keeps going forward in this vein and exploring his stylistic choices mixed with these ideas, which I think are really potent and need to be meditated on. Now, what do you think about Dragged Across Concrete, which I love the title. I think the title is describing the feeling and tone of the movie and what it feels like for you to watch it, actually. But I like the title a lot, frankly. But what do you think about this movie? Let us know in the comments. Please subscribe to this channel for more great content. Have a great day.